Welcome back to Wellness with Delaney. Today I'm with Alex Rybchinskiy. He is a health and wellness coach. He's been in this for decades, so he has so much to say about basically every area of health. He's also the founder of an amazing ancestral meat company that we will get into, and I'm really excited for today. We're going to talk about all sorts of mind, body, health, and it's going to be a very transformative day for you guys listening. All right, Alex, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat. Okay, so first and foremost, in your Instagram bio, you say you work with unfixable people. What does that mean?
What generally when I see that is people are always missing some sort of crucial detail that they need to address that other people don't. Like the traditional medical approach is, you have a problem, you go to a doctor, he sends you to a different specialist, and the specialist only knows a lot about a little, and they can ignore certain things. And so then that specialist will either send him to a surgeon, the surgeon sends him to a PT, and the PT kind of graduate, and then you go back through that whole system again, and you don't really get your problems resolved. It's less of a healthcare system and seems like more of a sick care system, and it's hard to profit off of healthy people in that system. And so when you're looking at the unfixable people, it's always something that is blatantly obvious. And my assessments run between 2 to 4 hours, up to 6 hours before I even put my hands on someone. Like hundreds of pages of paperwork. I got to know what's going on in their life, what got them to where they are in the sitting in front of me. And I look at everything, and when you're looking at the holistic system, you know holistic means mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. Not only physical with some supplements, or not only going to therapy, or not only going to a church or some kind of spiritual mentor counseling or something like that, or it's not only the physical. And so we have to look at everything because all of it bleeds together. And that's what seems to be is one of the ignored things in health. Is it's like there's people that kind of stay in their lanes and they don't want to drift outside of it because it's a lot to look at. But when you're looking at people who are have been through the system for 10, 20 years, and get diagnoses like degenerative disc disease, and then they panic, and then now they're going down a different route, and trying to go to summits and find every biohacky thing out there, and they don't even have the basics down. And so initially what I have people do for the most part is, like, if you don't breathe right, if you don't sleep right, eat right, think right, move right, drink the right water, or water in general, the basis of your biological system is not going to function properly. And getting those things in order before you do anything, like a lot of people like to run blood work, and it's clients still brand new will come in and go, should I get some blood work? I'm like, well, we know you're messed up. Like, what? Like, you don't have anything of the foundations down. It's like, you have a dent in your car, but you need to change your oil. Like, your oil is like 3 years old. Your engine's about to lock up. Like, let's worry about changing your oil before we worry about the dents on your car. And so when you start looking at things from the obvious standpoint, but cast the net pretty wide before you go pretty deep, then you start noticing that people aren't that broken. They have their priorities not in order. Their health is mismanaged, their mind is mismanaged, their time is mismanaged. People say, wish I can make more time. Yeah, you can't make time, you can only manage it. And so when people think about the past, what they've done in the past, what they've done in the future, it's like they're not making more of it. All we have to do is manage the time that we have. There is no, it's the illusion that we can create time or make more time. And so yeah, it goes back to you know managing the time you have, getting the things into your schedule that you need to get into. And once you sift through a lot of those issues, you're going to notice that a lot of people's health problems tend to go away. And then it comes from the more uh, the the technical approach of doing the manual therapy and making sure that they're moving correctly, and the breathing mechanics. And then it goes into those kind of more nuanced situations. But the people that come in for asking for blood work, and, like, look, if you need it for you and you want to spend a couple $1,000s seeing where your baseline is, like, that's perfectly okay. But we know things are about to get better. So it's like, to me, it seems like throwing, some money down the drain. And most people that come to see me are like, look, I honestly don't care. All I care about is getting better. And so great, but some people do need a landmark, like when I work with some professional athletes, or people who are more, need to be tuned and worked with carefully. I'm like, hey, let's get a baseline so we can see that you're moving in the right direction, and all the people that work with you see that you're moving in the right direction. Because sometimes it looks like they're going down, but really they're clearing things out of their life so that way they can progress and move forward. Like for example, I'm sure you know when you detox, it's not the prettiest situation that occurs. And so, but at the same time, their bloating goes down, they start feeling better, they start having more energy, they start thinking more clearly. Uh, you know, it's like, how do you control your mind when you have, 3, 4 cans of soda running through your system or sugar running through your system? I always ask people like, okay, we're going to go meditate, but first you're going to take 12 teaspoons of sugar and then we're going to go sit and meditate. And then they're going to go, how am I going to do that? I go, exactly. How are you going to do that? And it's like, well, throughout the day, this is what you're doing and your blood sugar's crashing. And so a lot of things are generally ignored. People aren't unfixable. That seems to be uh, what people label themselves as. And I'm always up for the challenge. I never say no to people like that. And that's why my success rate's highest because we look at the things that they, either ignored or their therapist ignored or their doctor ignored or their coach ignored, whatever it is. It's like I look at the stuff that tends to be ignored a lot.
I love this. And this is a hot take. Like everyone I talk to is like blood work first. So, and you're saying, let's get these fundamentals down because we know those things are going to get better anyways. And then we can find out like those nuances. And I think that's a really fascinating take. And obviously, your results speak for themselves. So, I want to kind of get into the different foundations that you do preach and help people with. Let's start with breathing. So, what are people doing wrong in their breath in day to day?
One of the, you can go on Instagram and look at everyone breathing and all the breathing specialists and the yogis and I guess yeah, breathing specialists. But you're going to notice everyone, and I don't know if they do this for the video where it kind of shows them inhaling in and breathing up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's secondary. That's accessory respiratory breathing, which is your sternocleidomastoid, your pec minor, your scalenes. These are all tiny muscles that lift your rib cage up. The upper respiratory system lifts your rib cage up, which anchors the lungs down, and then you basically inflate the lung by your lifting your shoulder girdle up, which is also a fight or flight response. It's a very sympathetic way to breathe. And the second mode is by dropping the diaphragm down, which creates a vacuum and it sucks air into your lungs. Like you don't inhale, like air doesn't come in. It's a vacuumed system. Your lungs are in a vacuum, they're vacuum sealed. And so the only way to get air in is to create a vacuum and pull air into your lungs. And exhaling is passive, so you don't have to exhale. All you have to do is relax, but you can't relax and inhale. So that's an active system. And when the diaphragm drops down, the belly comes out as it should. And most people, they tend to try to maximize their breathing, but really all you have to do is match the air intake you need for the work that you're doing. So even getting a small belly breath, so your belly breathing comprises of over 2/3 of your breathing mechanism, and your accessory or your upper breathing is only a third. So even at the full capacity of your third, by taking a half of a belly breath, you're matching what your upper respiratory system is doing, which then, if you start getting your scalenes become tight, your pec minors become tight, your sternocleidomastoids are these big muscles on the side of your neck become tight, they start impinging on nerves that come out of your neck and into your hands. You'll get things like grip weakness and tingly hands and loss of blood flow. And so people who do cold plunges, they put their hands in and they light up because they're not getting the proper blood flow because it's restricted at the neck. And when you start breathing from your belly, it your TVA, your transverse abdominis, is the muscle that's wrapped all the way around your torso like a corset, which people use weightlifting belts to mimic their TVA. And I'm trying to see if I should go into that. But another fun hot take where belts reverse your breathing pattern, because when you use a belt, you train your body to push into it. But
Mm,
that's when you are when you are lifting something heavy without a weight belt, you actually want to draw in and brace and contract your abdominals. So it's an inward motion. So you take a deep breath out and you create pressure inside of your stomach and your whole thoracic cavity or your abdominal cavity, and then you draw it in and you create lift. It's kind of like if you ever blow up a balloon and you squeeze it, it goes up and down because
hmm
you've taken the force. And so when you shut off your pelvic floor by contracting your anus and your multifidus seals your back in place, your diaphragm comes down and creates all this abdominal pressure, and then your TVA comes in like a corset and hugs you tight. It creates this lifting mechanism which keeps your back safe, but also it contracts your lats, it contracts your glutes, and you can there's I mean your internal obliques. Uh, it gets your psoas in order because your psoas and your diaphragm are intermingled fascially, so they overlap each other. Um, and when that belly comes in, it creates that lift. And so when you're using a belt, you're actually teaching the opposite mechanism. You're teaching to take a deep breath in into the belt, and that's you're pushing out against the belt. So when people take the belts off and go do something like yard work or pick up pencils, their belly comes out, and then they have back pain, and they come to me, and then they're unfixable. And when really I reverse that mechanism and allow them and teach them how to draw and integrate their core properly, they start their pain goes away, and they're absolutely blown away. But that's the breathing mechanism, and I see it all the time, and that's kind of what we're talking about with the yogis and the breath specialists. You see it all the time. Again, I don't know if it's for the gram. I don't know if it's to cue people to that they're inhaling, because like if I'm breathing with my belly this whole time and you don't see my shoulders moving up and down, but I'm breathing in. But at the same time, we have mirror neurons, and so we mimic what the other person does. So we naturally learn to inhale and suck our bellies in, and then it creates a breathing pattern disorder.
Wow. Okay,
And
and
then
hang on. You said that like all the stuff about weightlifting belts, and this is like I believe you, but it's a hot take. And I've never used one before, but I know people use them for like back support. But you're basically saying like once the belt comes off, it actually has like a counterproductive effect.
correct.
Wow. Okay, this is gonna like this might piss off the weightlifting community. But
That's
I mean,
good.
yeah, and
I'm here for it.
I've always thought that like it is interesting that like we have to wear all these things, right, to lift heavy. Like if we're using our muscles correctly, do we really need a weight or like a belt around our bodies to support? And I've never owned one or used one, so I don't know what it feels like, but this is crazy. Are you really into lifting yourself?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and
Oh
you do
yeah.
it belt free, heavy lifting belt free.
Belt belt free, strap free, brace free. Everything is shirt free. Everything is me lifting barefoot
Yeah.
and yeah, lifting heavy weights.
That makes sense. And the straps too. I mean, grip strength is full body strength. And so it's like, I feel like the straps kind of just, you get, you might get the glute workout, but you're not getting the grip strength, and that's a huge part of it. So it's like, why are we using those? So it's a really hot take, and I find that very fascinating that you brought that up. No one's ever mentioned that on this show before.
And there's another thing about the straps that you put on your hands. So
Hmm
your peripheral nervous system, your C8 nerve that comes out of your C7 to T1, supplies the innervation to your hands so that it closes and opens. And so the further you go down the nerve pathway, the weaker the signal becomes. And so somewhere, if your teeth are not aligned properly and you have a forward head posture, your upper chest breathing, and your scalenes are impinging your brachial plexus, which basically is like, have you ever taken like a TV and you see all the cords hanging
hmm
together, and you take them and you bundle them all up, and that's basically what your body does. Is it takes your C4 through C8 nerve and it bundles them up, and it basically supplies your shoulder, your arm, your forearm, your hand. And so the further if there's a restriction, electricity will go down to your hands. So if people are losing grip strength and they can't lift and they use straps. Basically, the strap now hangs off of the weight hangs off of their arm, creating a multi-directional shoulder instability. So now their shoulder becomes unstable in every single range of motion.
Wow.
Um, and it creates long-term problems. And then people start wondering why they have shoulder problems. And then you trace it all back. It's not the shoulder. It's not your grip. It's actually, your teeth could be misaligned. It could be your breathing patterns disorder. You don't know how to contract your core properly and draw enough tension. Without tension, you don't have integrity in your system. And without integrity, like, have you ever been on a jet ski, or not jet ski,
Hmm.
like tubing?
Yeah.
So like, what is the first thing the boat does before it takes off? Like, you're on the tube, ropes in the water, the
Hmm.
boat's about to start moving. What's the first thing that happens?
I mean, it turns on the engine.
Yeah, but like
Right.
the boat starts to move first and it
Yeah.
pulls tension into the system.
Right.
It doesn't take off when it's like all not under tension. So it first
Right.
drags you a little bit and then they take off, because if they took off right away, you'd get jerked. And that's what the
Right.
body does. And your body, every time it gets jerked, tenses up. And then people get flexibility issues, they have instability, they have injury. And if the joint loses 1 degree of range of motion and out of alignment, it creates an injury.
Wow.
And so yeah, those straps, even though it can help you lift more, and when people make it their job, like if they're a like a power lifter, and they use straps or belts at like 90, 95, 100%, or even 110% for like competition, I'm all for that. But we're talking about the general public who are not professional lifters, who are, getting off the couch after, or getting out of work, they're accountants, their moms, their dads leaving work, and then they're going to the gym, putting on straps, putting on belts, and trying to lift weights, and then creating problems for themselves later down the road, and they don't even realize it. And they're substituting long-term health for short-term gain, and maybe looking good at a wedding, or you know, maybe my wife will sleep with me if I look better, or vice versa. And so they're trading these trivial things, and they're chipping away at their health, and
Yeah.
they don't even realize it.
Yeah. And I mean, even to say like when you're, let's like belt specifically using one to lift heavy, like you won't have back issues if you learn how to properly use your core and have proper posture. And then it turns every exercise into a core exercise, right? And so then I feel like you end up looking even better. And so I'm like, I mean, that's a huge part of the exercise. If I'm doing a deadlift and I'm actually activating my core, yeah, I'm working my lower body and working my posterior chain, but I'm also like really getting that deep core as well and my pelvic floor. And like that's ultimately going to help me in that area of my like physique as well. So I feel like even not using these things really does help you just get that full body, like well-rounded aesthetic. I mean, that's my philosophy, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's an interesting hot
100%.
take. Okay, so then
Yeah,
even
unless again we're not. Oh, I was gonna say, unless we're not talking about people who are like pro bodybuilders,
yeah,
like that's their job, is to like, okay, my rear delt isn't doing this. I'm gonna make that better. I'm gonna enhance this. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. I'm gonna focus on that. But we're talking about the non-minority of people who are doing that.
exactly. Yeah, it's like people doing it every day, just going from work to the gym. And then, okay, another fundamental that you brought up is sleep, and sleep hygiene is so important. And I feel like people are not sleeping. What are you seeing with people who are like struggling to get either like good quantity of sleep or quality of sleep?
Uh, Here's a really fun one. So people, before they go to work, what do? They stop over and they get some coffee, and then they get tired midday. They get some more coffee. They're eating too much sugar that keeps them up. If they're getting up in the middle of the night, like say they're falling asleep, but they're getting up in the middle of the night, this is a classic sign of parasites.
Hmm.
And so getting them on a deworming or parasite cleanse is going to be really important, because parasites eat at night. And so you're going to notice, if you're getting up between like 1 and 3 and routinely in those times, and you get sweats. And so then you have like a parasite problem, uh, or some kind of digestive problem. You could be eating too late, and some people will say, "Hey, I can't fall asleep without eating," and that to me is like, okay, well, that's blood sugar and parasite issue. So mismanagement of blood sugar. Then you can go into like, are you sleeping with your phone by you? Are you sleeping with lights on? And any sort of light is going to impact your cortisol rhythms. And if your cortisol is up, that means you're not recovering. Your anabolic hormones are going to go down because they're going to be suppressed. Because farmers back in the day, the sun goes down, we're going to bed, can't see anything anyway. The sun comes up, time to get up, and your animals will remind you. So people, if they need extra help, they're so fried that they need some blackout curtains. They need to turn off their Wi-Fi at night. Some people don't need to go this far. I mean, you have the thing around your neck. Like I sleep with my Defender under my pillow, and so it's like it's under my face, you know what I mean? And Yeah, EMF protection. There's so much stuff that we could do, but most of the time it's like they're either dehydrated, they mismanage their blood sugar, they drank too much caffeine or stimulants, and so I mean, if anything past 12, I can't do. I would say even past 10. I don't take anything that will bump me up unless there's something I have to stay up for because I'm really big on my sleep. We're all in
Mhm.
bed by like in bed by 8:30, 9, relaxing, decompressing until we fall asleep. And then yeah, we're early risers. And Did I miss anything? Do you want me to expand on anything?
Yeah,
Because
well,
there's a
no,
lot about sleep.
it makes a lot of sense, and I'm curious what you think about this. So here's my issue. I actually have gotten my sleep really good overall, right? I've started using like 40 hertz for like training my brain during the day. I obviously have my EMF protection from Aries. I actually think my friend who's a biologist told me she thinks I have this like SNP. That's basically like I metabolize caffeine super fast because it doesn't matter what time I drink coffee. I have no issue sleeping with that. But one thing that I've noticed is like I always have to pee in the middle of the night. And I think I'm drinking liquids too late. Do you tell people to cut off liquids at any point in the night?
No, I literally drink water before I go to bed because it's actually it's like my natural alarm clock
Hmm.
because I'll get up at like 6, 7 because I have to go to the bathroom. The one thing about the bladder emptying in the middle of the night is when you're talking about that from the holistic standpoint, the bladder controls fear. When people get scared, they pee themselves.
Oh.
So if you were a patient of mine, I would look at and go, what are some of the unconscious fears you have that
Hmm.
are unresolved? And what are the emotions tied to it? Because the spirit will give you a task, like, okay, I need to learn how to be kinder to people. So it gives you very frustrating people, and you're like, and then it becomes a thought, and that thought becomes like, they don't deserve kindness, and then you start feeling emotions like, look at all these people, and you become angry with all these unkind people, when really the task is for you to be kind. And then the physical responses, like you could get these knee-jerk reactions and tensions in your system that causes you pain. And so when I go back to that thing, is like, what are you afraid of? And then what are you tasked to overcome the fear? Then I would go, what are the thoughts that are revolving around fear? Whether it be like, what's happening with our food system? What happens when, do you have kids?
Not yet.
Yeah. What happens when I have kids? Like, are they going to be okay? Should I bring kids into this world? And is my health okay? Am I gonna? I keep getting up, and you're also a coach, and so you're thinking like, man, I'm getting up in the middle of the night. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? And so there's these thought patterns that emerge and create complexes in us that, or even call them egregores, where they're self-created uh, uh, entities that basically we've personified as this villain. And so we all have villains in our head. Like you can easily go on the internet and whatever you get mad at, that's a villain. And so we've created a persona. You may not even know this person, but you've created a personification over this person saying a certain thing that you don't agree with, and it creates a visceral reaction and a mental reaction. And then you can go into spirit and go like, what am I tasked to learn here? And so if you were a patient of mine, I would say, what are some things that are rolling around in your mind that may be unconscious, or maybe sometimes you become conscious of, that keep you up at night?
Hmm. Yeah, this is interesting too. And I'm like, hang on, I feel like I'm getting a little therapy here. Because I don't really have anything that keeps me up at night unless it's like I get creative ideas being a creator, right? I like I get excited. I get way too excited to do what I'm doing, and that will sometimes keep me up if I'm like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to try this. Like, here's some ideas. But as far as like this is, I used to get really bad anxiety dreams, and it would be some occasionally, but like not nearly as much anymore. But it would be, I felt like my whole life I kept taking the alternative path, right? So like I in high school, like I really like I fit in with the crowd, but I never felt like I belonged in it. And then when I went to college, I tried the sorority thing and then ended up taking a gap year and like doing volunteer work. And I know everyone thought it was super weird, left that friend group. And then like from there, just every career choice I've ever made, every schooling choice I've ever made has been very alternative. And used to have really bad anxiety dreams about high school, about college, about my old sorority friends, like every past, right? Like any friendship that's gone south because I've gone in a different direction, I've had anxiety dreams about. And I feel like I'm finally starting to overcome that by just like I've made my choice sticking to it and like understanding that the calling on my life is unique, and like embracing that. But it used to be a big anxiety point for me. And I feel like now it's like I'm really having to grow into myself and step into myself. And I do think the getting up in the middle of the night has gotten a little bit better, but still sometimes I have to pee. And it's the most
Yeah.
annoying thing in the world. So this is really interesting to get into.
Yeah. And you're individuating from who people thought you were
Hmm.
into who you want to be. And
Hmm.
that's one of the that's the mental, let's call it the emotional transition. And the physical transition is your bladder at that point could still be locked up. So I would have to treat your bladder like physically. I would put my hands in and work on the muscles of the bladder, because the bladder is controlled by these two muscles. When the sac is empty, and the muscles are stretched out, and as the sac fills up, it brings the muscles in, and then it goes, oh, you have to pee, and then you empty the bladder. And then so these muscles get stuck. So when you have a little bit of water that fills up and it pulls tension on the muscles, it triggers your brain to go, hey, we have to pee. And that could be also the physical response to that. So as you're healing these thoughts and these emotions around identity and like who you're moving into now, the physical is also locked up. And there's not many people that know how to treat the bladder or even treat the bladder.
Hmm.
And that's what I would do in person. The other thing I would ask is, what kind of water are you drinking? Because if you're a kind of person that kind of water runs through you, so maybe more minerals in the water, maybe time your rhythms better. So yeah, maybe you're the kind of person that can't drink after 7 o'clock. Water or any kind of liquids after 7 o'clock, and see how you can time your rhythms. Like for example, I have a client that doesn't have a colon, and we're timing food patterns to the bowel rhythms because the
Hmm.
bowels are erratic. So then we're trying to figure out, okay, for his body, he needs to eat at these times, and then he can stay, asleep through the night. And so, but if he eats too late, then he's going to have to eliminate at this point. So it's like, okay, well, we're not going to eat from this point, because then you're going to have to, get up and go to the bathroom. And so we found these natural rhythms that his body falls into. And as he healed and is still healing, he can experiment with that. So maybe if you're really thirsty in the middle of the night, and you put some extra salt in your water, some nice Celtic salt, or um, and then see if that keeps you up. But there's a fun little water trick. Like you can put Celtic salt into a gallon of water and shake it up, and whatever doesn't get dissolved is won't bind to the water. So you could drink that salty water, because I'll put like a tablespoon in a gallon, and whatever doesn't come up, like don't drink the bottom, obviously, because that's going to be where all the salt is. But the water is going to be fully balanced with all the salt that it can take in. So maybe you need to potentially up your electrolytes and see if electrolytes before bed will keep you asleep and not going to the bathroom, maybe.
Yeah,
But yeah, because like if you have like an RO system, that can it can run through you.
that's smart. Yeah, I've been doing electrolytes. I've been doing like the unflavored optimal electrolytes from Seeking Health. I love them, but I do them in the morning, so maybe I'll try them at night too. And then okay, so I'm really fascinated how, you kind of tapped into like the somatic emotional connection. And I think that's really important. And a lot of people don't realize that our bodies can hold trauma, can hold limiting beliefs, can hold generational trauma even. So, like, what do you, when you're working with someone's body to kind of unlock some of the emotional somatic connection, what does that look like?
Um, I know some practitioners they try to like invoke it or incite it, like this is what we're going in to do. For me it happens naturally, and when I'm in a certain area and you start to learn where the organs will displace emotion, and like fear will go in usually people's right, anger will go in people's right shoulder, fear will go into their legs and their quads, and anxiety will go into their left shoulder. And then you start seeing these patterns emerge with people. And as I'm working on that, I'm asking them, basic questions. And a lot of people, when they feel safe, they volunteer the information. And some people end up crying on the table. And they're like, oh, I want to cry. I'm like, cry, like fart, cry, whatever you got to do. Like, I'm here, and I'll be here. So, you're not judged, and, do what you need to do. And some people will like cry, go into a sideline position, or they'll sob, and some people will get angry, and then they're like, oh, whoa, what happened? I'm like, well, your emotions came out. That's what was stored in the muscle. And some people will tell me, they've been through therapy, and I'm like, well, good, you've been priming that muscle, that emotional muscle, to come out, but now it's stuck in the muscle. Now it's we got to get it out of the tissues. And for example, I was working on this lady's neck, and I mean, it was like a brick, and I couldn't get it to release. So I started asking her questions about, because your neck is where your fifth chakra is. It's where you speak from. And so if there's any restrictions in there, I started asking her questions, vague questions, like, well, is there anything that you don't ever share with people? Like, you want to say this to your kids or your husband or your partner, or, your parents? And then they're like, no, not really. And then all of a sudden it starts cascading. And then as they're talking, their neck is loosening up. And I'm like, great. So this person doesn't feel confident speaking what's on their mind, or maybe this whole concept of like speaking your truth to me is interesting, because like we all have our own truth, and in my mind there's truth. And so when I hear people saying I'm speaking my truth, and then they give me a take of some sort, I'm like, well, you're speaking your perspective, your experience. I don't know if it's the truth, but you know, I know that there's fundamental truths out there. And so people can bypass themselves by going straight to, this is truth, but this is my truth. So say it's my experience, it's my perspective. This is what I've lived through. Those are more accurate words. And when you get people to actually communicate what they're meaning to communicate, um, like someone's wife can say, well, my truth is my husband's an asshole. And then you start diving into that, and you go, well, that may be your experience or a story based on past pretenses and experiences. And I go, well, what does he do? Oh, well, he comes home late and he doesn't pay attention to me. And I go, well, your husband's not here, so I can't really. I need to hear his side of the story. But like let's take his side for a second. Like, what is he doing? Well, he works all day, he provide, and he's like, well, it sounds like he's trying to do the best that he can. Could that be a possibility? And then you're like, well, what are you needing? Well, I'm needing for him to like spend time with me. Like, have you ever communicated that? It's like, yeah, at night, and he's always tired. I'm like, what about weekend? And then you start piecing, you unlayer, and then as we're unlayering, this person's neck is mush. And I'm like, oh, that was the problem. This person
Mm,
never vocalizes what they're needing or wanting or desiring. And some of the times they don't even know. That's
yeah.
the other fun part. They don't know. So I sit there and I give them wild, uh, antagonistic thoughts, like, oh, well, would you want to leave your husband? And they're like, no, 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 I love him. I go, great. I'm glad we got there. Good. So you love him. There's a truth. And then I put a little stamp on that.
Yeah.
And then we keep working our way in, and then we piece together what they want. And then their physiology responds to that. Like have you heard about the study where they took blind people like from birth, and they've never like experienced mirroring of neurons, and you ask them like, what is set, make a face that when you're sad, and then they'll frown, and then a happy face, and it's like so there's it took away that mirror neuron response, and it showed that we innately have these things inside of us that we all share. And so confident people usually walk upright, and people who think usually put their hand on their chin, and they look up. And so we have these archetypal expressions that come out of us when we experience certain things. And same thing happens with people. And so when people carry a certain posture, I start immediately thinking and feeling, what's this person going through? What have they been through? And like the whole NPC talk, I've heard of that. People are
Hmm.
NPCs, and they kind of like,
Yeah.
and it's like those are people. Those are
Hmm.
real people.
Yeah.
And it to with their own experiences and own traumas, like what kind of trauma do you have to go through to you know think that like what's their life, that like the best option they have is like driving through a fast food place, and like they already probably don't like themselves. So it's mirroring in their environment that they're putting into themselves more things to not like themselves and make themselves worse. And that affirms that they're a bad person, but they're also doing their best, and they're pain, and it becomes this tangled mess.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That's no, I love
people are
this.
people are beautiful.
Yeah, no, you're so right too. And like everything about like truth versus perception, I think this whole idea that like the my truth this, my truth that holds space for my truth, I think it's so toxic because it leads to people validating their own cognitive distortions. They could be believing the biggest lies about themselves, about the world. That might be their perspective, but that's going to distort their view of themselves, the world. I mean, there's a reason we say body dysmorphia, right? Somebody's truth could be that they are morbidly obese. Meanwhile, they're rail thin and unhealthy and actually really need to get health, right? Is that their truth, or is that a cognitive distortion? That's now their perspective. And so I think you're so right in that, like, we have to undo this. And I think some of it comes from this like overly therapized culture of people who really, they go to therapy but just want a sounding board, want an echo chamber. And it just validates ideas instead of challenging them and instead of working through them. And so I think it's really cool what you're doing where like you're not just there to become someone's echo chamber, to tell them that they're right and the world is against them and their truth is the truth that matters and they need to do whatever they can to validate and uphold that belief system, but you're actually kind of challenging it through the physical and the mental. And I think there's a lot of value to that. Okay, and so one thing that I know you've recently kind of undergone that I find really, really fascinating and I'm excited to learn about more is Berski. Is that how you pronounce it? Your meat company?
Berski, yeah.
Berski. And, I love that you're about the ancestral grind because I'm so the same way. Tell me a little bit about Berski.
Berski started off as meat eating raw organ meats, and so liver, heart, testicles, and I am a busy person, and I sometimes don't manage my time well, especially around food. And I'm like, I need to get this in and out. And so my liver started going bad. And then I started dehydrating it because we have a dehydrator. And I was like, you know what? This will improve my shelf life. So I threw in a dehydrator, and I was like chewing on it. And I'm in my gym right now. And my house is like 200 feet over there. And one of my clients, Luke Story, came in, and he had some blood sugar issues, and he goes, "Do you have any orange juice? My blood sugar's all messed up." And I was like, "I don't have orange juice, but I'm like, but I have some liver, or I have this jerky. You want to try that?" And because I didn't tell him it was liver, but he ate it, and he goes, "This is liver. This is the best liver I've ever had." And he goes, "You should make a business out of this." And I'm like, you know, and so I kicked the can down the road for 6 months, and throughout that whole time, I'm packing my daughter's lunch, and salamis, and trying to get good food in her system, and I'm trying to find something to put her in her food, that in her lunch, that's good. And so then my friend, who's now my business partner, who also owns and operates Eleiko, the weightlifting company, he came in, and he was like, "Hey, I want to make a protein bar." And I'm like, "Is this like like what kind of protein bar?" He goes, "Something that you would eat." And I'm like, "Well, let me sit on this for a little bit." So then he came in one day, and I was like, "This has tons of protein, and it's extremely micronutrient rich and tons of minerals. And do you want to try it? So he tried it, and he's like, "This is a lot of protein." He's like, "Is this liver?" I go, "Yep." And so he's like, "If we can make this taste good, I think we have something here." And so that was like 3.5 years ago, that idea of me doing stuff and making liver. And then, so then we spent, a good year finding manufacturers and finding, you know, packaging and finding distributions and like what starting business licensing and making all those things, around it, and getting samples from people left and right, finding a good source of meat. We use Savory Institute regenerative meat, even though we can't put it on the label, but I did put pasture raised on the label because what goes on a USD label has to be inside. And so I'm sure you've seen that old reel of mine where you can still feed lot grass fed, grass finished cows.
Hmm.
And so for me to be able to sleep at night, like we were talking about earlier, is I need my conscience clear. And so by putting pasture raised on the label, that means I can't go back and get grass fed, grass finished animals from any source. So they have to be grass fed, grass finished, and pasture raised. And so we have to do some soil studies to put regenerative on there because we have to prove to the USDA that our farms are regenerative and regenerating, and that's going to take a little bit. But we use Savory Institute cows, which is a regenerative source, and so it like putting all those things together as like a Czech practitioner, someone who practices what he preaches, and so I'm like, if I'm going to be feeding people good stuff, then I need to make sure that it's free of these things. And so we took like 3 years to release because, like, okay, well, all the manufacturers want to put citric acid in there. I'm like, well, what is that? Oh, it comes from black mold. Oh,
Hmm.
fantastic. Oh, encapsulated citric acid. So it's black mold encapsulated in what's encapsulated in? Oh, vegetable oil. Oh, that's odd. And what's lactic acid? Oh, they use the Streptococcus thermis bacteria, and then they inoculate sugar, which then you can say from non-GMO beets or a non-GMO source. And that's basically putting the same strain on a different sugar source to create that same lactic acid fermentation. And then when you encapsulate it, what's encapsulated in, and so if it's fermented, it's bathed in it for a little bit. So it's like you're still cross-contaminating either mold or the Streptococcus thermis strain into your system, and that's what that tangy taste is on like that citric acid taste. But there's only 3 companies in the United States that that make it for the food industry, and they sell them in drums, and it's kind of interesting. So I'm like, no, that can't go in there. So we found a manufacturer that won't put them in there. So then we stuck with our celery powder, which is I guess the worst thing in there, which is fantastic. Because even though celery naturally contains nitrates, it's at least bound to the salt molecule itself. And when you start to isolate individual things and concentrate them, it creates problems in the system. But like all of our salt has, I'm sure you've heard the craze about how our salts have heavy metals, and it's like, yeah, it's part of the ground. Trace
Hmm.
minerals are also heavy metals, and when we accumulate them, it becomes a problem. But when your body brings it in all together, your body knows what to do with it, and it can separate and get it out of your system a lot more efficiently. And so we went with the unprocessed sea salt. We're working on a different sea salt for when it's more testing. It's going to be even more, but right now we use unrefined sea salt. So it's like figuring out all those details and the ratios of how much liver to put in, how much heart to put in, and it took a long time, and even put it in a non-dyed beef casing because let's stay on theme. Let's put it in a casing that's the intestines instead of a collagen casing, which they basically pour an acidic or an alkaline solution and separate cowhides, and then they basically sift out all the collagen from cowhides and then form it into a casing, which I'm like, ugh, I don't want that. Versus they pretty much clean and disinfect the intestines, and I'm like, let's keep it as natural as possible.
Yeah.
Because I know that's been a big craze, the word collagen. Everyone's like, oh, collagen is good for you, but how do they make it? How does it get into that form? And it's kind of shapeless at first versus the casing is the casing. It's already made that way by the cow. And so, yeah, 3.5 years later, here we are. Berski is, we had to do a name change. That was fun. We, and right before we ordered a massive amount of packaging, we had to change our name, and so we created Berski from Ricard and I's last name. We got BER from his last name and SKI from my last name, and we got smacked it together and we got Berski.
Amazing. I love this journey. I love how committed you guys are to just making the cleanest of the clean. And yeah, I feel like people get so grossed out by the idea of organ meats, but the removal of organ meats from our diet is a relatively new thing. You know, our grandparents and our great grandparents were eating it, and it's ever since I incorporated organ meats into my own diet, like my health has skyrocketed. It's been amazing for my skin, my thyroid, my gut, like hormones. Like it's pretty much all encompassing. And I think that people need to really realize that like organs are not gross, they're food and they're a really important part of our diet as well, especially if you're on the more carnivore like lifestyle. Organs are a really good way to get those micronutrients into your diet. What is your like I know you're probably gonna say like all of them, but what would you say is like one of your favorite organs to consume and why?
Um, I would say liver. Liver for its nutrient value, heart for its taste. I would say testicles for, honestly, it's always been honest. I don't know why I threw that soft word out there. Um, Habit. Testicles, I've helped people get their testosterone back up.
Hmm.
And I know there's a lot of people who are, grossed out, stop eating testicles. There's a CrossFit athlete I have in mind. I'm sure this hot take might run across his feed at some point. And between like don't eat organs and testicles, like do my nutrition program instead. And it's
Hmm.
like, dude, you're on some kind of gear, you're on test, you're taking the easy road. Yeah, yes, you put in work. I'm not discrediting that, but like the average person is not going to put in that much work to try to look like you. And that's what we have to remember. And so testicles, I'm 37 years old. My test is over 900. I've never taken any testosterone. I've never taken any growth hormone, no steroids in my whole life. And what I've done to improve it is basically eliminate all of the things that causes low testosterone,
Yeah.
drinking, cigarettes, which I never smoked cigarettes, but microplastics, phytoestrogens, things like that that are causing hormone disruptions. The fabric softeners that have all these fragrances, like you remove those things, and your body will do what it needs to do. But So I ran a 6 month trial on myself before I started eating testicles. I got blood work because I was curious to see if it improves. So I got a hormone panel. My test was 844, and within 6 months eating testicles every single day, my test went up 60 points and it went over 900. And I'm like, oh, and I didn't change anything about my life. Didn't change my workout habits, didn't change anything. So it was like if you're gonna do science and experiment, like keep something the same for a while.
Hmm.
Um, and boy, let me tell you, it definitely is great. So it's not my favorite organ to eat because it kind of tastes like raw chicken,
Hmm.
texture of like tuna. It's like, ugh, I don't really like it, but you put a little like lemon pepper on it and you kind of get it down.
Yeah.
But liver, I eat raw liver all the time. And so, but for its, like, if you had to eat one organ, liver would be a fantastic organ to eat because of its nutrient profile. But I still can't figure out, shout out to all those people who are freeze drying and desiccating like spleen and pancreas, and those organs are rough to get in.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure. Well, no, and testicles, I mean, obviously I don't take it because I'm a woman, but I've given it to my husband and he loves it. Like he swears it gives him superpowers. I used to take like all the female reproductive organs and I actually had to stop because I am low progesterone and high estrogen. And my naturopath is like, I think you're getting a lot of estrogen from like the uterus and everything that you're taking. So take a break. But for people who like need to get their estrogen up, definitely love that. But
e-
no, yeah, I
e-
would.
Even one more thing, even women
Yeah.
post-menopause, when their estrogen naturally drops and their testosterone goes up, it's absolutely necessary for
Yeah,
even women to keep their testosterone levels at a healthy range.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, we have more testosterone than estrogen. So many women don't know that. But yeah, pancreas, I take it like dried, but I swear by it. It's nature's best digestive enzyme. I bring it to restaurants. If I like know that I'm going to be somewhere where I can't control every ingredient, make sure that I always put pancreas and like sprinkle it on my food because it is like the world's greatest digestive enzyme I've ever consumed. It eradicates bloat. It's insane. I like can't believe more people haven't discovered the power of organs. Okay, so where can people find Berski?
They can find it at eatberski.com. Our social handle is at eatberski. It's everywhere at eatberski, no matter what channel you go on. We're still new, so it's a little underdeveloped, but yeah, that's where you go, eatberski.com.
Amazing. And where do people find you and connect with you, whether they want to see? I know on social media you have so much amazing, just like free content that people can really like dive into, but then also like as a coach.
My personal business with Primal Fusion Health is at primalfusionhealth.com. We have an online community where basically people. It was actually on Monday I hopped on here. We were doing our community call. Every Monday we go live, and I it's like my our gift to the world, and yes, we charge for it, but uh, it's for basically 2 hours of my time, they get like over 80 hours of time with me throughout the year every Monday. And that's on bodybuildinginstitute.com. And they can come and ask whatever, anything that they want is on their mind, from exactly kind of like what we're talking about, the fear. We dive into that, or we dive into their health, or we analyze one person, we pull up mechanics of people. We have tons of coaches in there that bring their clients casework, and all the people that come, they're like listening and they're watching and they're
Wow.
learning stuff. And so, but if they want to work with me, they can go to primalfusionhealth.com or find me on Instagram at health.performance.engineer. Um, and yeah,
Amazing. I'll make sure to link those in the show. And then last question that I love to ask everyone, especially the experts, what is your biggest wellness goal right now?
but my wellness goal is to achieve. No, my biggest wellness goal is harmony right now because between wife, kids, uh, four businesses, a coaching practice. One of those businesses is Berski, which when I'm not coaching, I'm thinking about Berski, and you know, getting all those details. And so, as of because we're out and launched now, there's less details I have to focus on of like the nitty gritty stuff. So, I got my cold plunge routine every single day done. I'm getting my sauna back in. I'm getting my movement back in. My sleep has always been on point. My eating has always been on point. Breathing is obviously on point. My thinking, I'm always checking my thinking. So it's getting those physical practices back in because it's been a lot of sitting behind a computer, getting on a phone, making calls. So I've gotten almost all of it in. And I can't quite call it a habit yet, but we are. That's where I'm getting, and then integrating back with martial arts back in. Like I haven't done jujitsu in like 3 years since I've been starting the Berski, and so getting those physical habits back in because everything else is dialed in and locked in, or else I wouldn't be able to function. Like
Hmm.
if I didn't have my sleep right, my food right, like I haven't eaten, as of October, no, as of Halloween of last year, I cut out all desserts, any type. If it's like even if it's chocolate, it's like I've sticking to whole foods like fruits and meats, vegetables, things like that. That I use fruit as dessert, um, but those kind of things were really interrupting my mind, my emotions. Um, and so, you know, my soul was like, we're done. And I got sick. And then I never had a craving for that again. So I cut that out. And it allows me to keep my mind sharp, keep my energy going, have enough room for my wife and my kids and myself and my animals. I got like 5 animals in the house and six, if you ask my daughter, because we have a tarantula also as a pet. Um, and yeah, that's my biggest thing is getting all of those harmonized so that way it's like my time, because we talked about we can't make time, is my time is managed so effectively that I'm already doing all the things I need to do. It's getting extra things and prioritizing what's the most important one that creates the most benefit that my soul really craves the most and getting those in.
Beautiful. I love that so much. Well, thank you so much for taking the past hour to chat with me and share so much about your practice. I know I'm super fascinated by everything that you do, kind of connecting the mind, the body, the spirit, and I think the audience will be as well. So, you guys, if you love this, make sure to check out Alex on Instagram. He has so many amazing videos with just really good resources that you can just kind of dive into for free and learn from for free. And then if you're interested in the coaching side, I will put a link to both websites for Berski and his coaching in the show notes as well. Alex, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Delaney. Appreciate it.
All right, you guys, I'll chat with you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day.